everybody. Welcome to another episode of Age of Quarantine. I am your host, Chris Enriquez. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. I am stoked for tonight because my band Spotlights had the pleasure of touring with my guest, Brett from the band Pallbearer. And also, they have a special relationship with St. Vitus. My other band, Primitive Weapons, have played with them. They're just great fucking guys. Such a good band. Probably the best, when it comes to like this, crop of like doom metal bands that have come out in the past 5 to 10 years. These guys are at the top of that list. Just to know them and also just to have them as a band that I regularly listen to, it's just an honor. And Brett is such a kind dude. And I appreciate him making time to do this. His voice is unbelievable. His playing is unbelievable. I can't say enough nice things about him and his band. We had Joe on the show when we first started. That was great. So now we're going through the band. We're going to Brett now, and we're going to talk about the new material, the new record coming out, Signing to Nuclear Blast. We're also going to take a deep dive into the past. If you like what you see and you've enjoyed past episodes, you can go on YouTube and watch all of the episodes. Most of them are on my personal YouTube channel, Christopher Enriquez, if you look that up, and a bunch of them are on the Revolver Magazine YouTube channel, which is my day job. So without further ado, and I'm going to turn this music off right now because that would be awkward to be listening to this when we get him on screen, even though Watcher in the Dark is a fantastic song. We'll talk about writing that and the creative process and a lot of great stuff. So join me, friend Brett from Pallbearer. All right, let's let the internet work its magic.
Hey,
Brett.
Thanks for such a kind intro, Chris.
Hey, no problem, man. It's all good stuff, and I'm not lying because we got nothing but love for you in Brooklyn. You know that.
Yeah, man. Likewise. It's good to see you, man. How you holding up through all this stuff?
I've been lucky, and in the sense that like, no one around me has gotten sick somehow, even with us being the, on the top of that list when shit was real bad. So, and I'm working. This whole idea to do this, honestly, was because I kind of freaked out a little bit in terms of like, I don't even know, when we're going to get to see people. Well, not even just that. It was more of like a personal thing. It was like I feel like if I'm not out talking to people, I'm so used to being at shows or hanging out with musicians. I'm like, I think I'm going to lose my mind if I don't see something.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah, and as I said, your bandmate Joe was kind enough to be one of our first guests. We got to test it out on him, and that was a lot of fun. So I'm glad that now we have you here. Have you been managing to get through this difficult time?
I mean, I'm alive, I guess, trying to stay sane with the like nonstop onslaught of like bad news,
Yeah, man, it's pretty fucking brutal, man. I'm not gonna lie. Part of doing this too was like, not only was it like a selfish thing where I'm like, I get to talk to musicians and friends, but I like entertaining people. It's a weird word to use, but I don't know if you consider yourself. Some musicians don't really consider themselves entertainers. For me, it like took a while to sort of like accept that. Like, we're not playing pop music, neither one of us are, but you're on stage, you're charging people to come in. I like that exchange. And for me, it was almost like, let me give other people something to do. People are watching us right now,
Yeah.
So,
it is an exchange, you don't want people to get people are paying for a show or buying a record, and you want them to get their money's worth,
Absolutely. And the funny thing about, to transition a little bit to like the fact that we live in an underground music world, granted, like, both of our bands, especially yours, have gotten to do some bigger things, and I want to eventually get to that. But, we don't live in an age where I think that, we're around the same age. I might be a little older. I'm going to be 40 this year. But remember, even when it came to like underground metal bands, you could go on MTV and watch a Melvins video on like Headbangers Ball or something. this is cool because any Pallbearer fans, I'm sure they may have seen some interviews or read them, but they don't get to see us talk for an hour on a regular basis, right? So it's cool.
No. Yeah, totally.
Well, with that being said, I'm playing host, obviously, so I know we're buds, but I'm going to try to do my host thing tonight. I want to let everyone know who's watching that if you have questions, that about half past the hour, I'll check the question mark box at the bottom of the screen. And if you leave comments, I'll try to get to them. It's a little tough, but the question mark box is the best way to do it. And yeah, man, if you're cool, I mean, you signed up for it. We're going to I'm going to deep dive into your life. It'll be like a live therapy session.
Yeah, that's exactly what I need right now. That's what we have in lieu of healthcare here.
Yeah, exactly.
Therapy.
How's what's the vibe in Arkansas been like in general out there?
I mean, honestly, I can't say I'm the best gauge just because I literally do nothing but go to the grocery store. I've fully embraced the just being a hermit, I really don't want to get COVID-19. So I've just been extremely careful. I just pretty much don't do anything, but we'll occasionally get together and jam, Devin and Mark and I will get together. I'll go on walks and hike and stuff. But other than that, I'm pretty much just at my house all the time. But at least in my neighborhood, it seems like most people, at least at Kroger, are wearing masks. So at least people are being smart about it, at least the people I encounter. So that's good. Yeah.
I smiled a little bit when you mentioned Devin and Mark because I just remind me you have the nicest bandmates, and I notice these things because of the fact that my day job being at Revolver magazine and the guys at St. Vitus, always seeing bands every day. Mm-hmm. It's pretty often that you will come across some bands that I won't name who can be not the friendliest, especially when they start getting a little taste of even underground success. But yeah, Mark and Devin and Joe, all you guys, man, I that's what really goes a long way for me and for a lot of us. I think with the St. Vitus crew is the fact that you guys are just fucking dudes. I hang out with Joe quite a bit nowadays, when he's around, because I know he's into the dance music scene and all that shit. So yeah, parties. But hey, I want to just shout every once in a while. I want to shout out people watching. I want to thank everybody for tuning in, and to at Evan Dilst. It's great to see that you did stumble upon this and that you could use some therapy and that we can provide that to you. And to at Caliprian, thanks for tuning in from Hot Springs. I like when I see people from all over the country and all over the world tuning in. So yeah, man, fucking talk about growing up in Arkansas in general, and then maybe if you could kind of tie that into how you came to find a passion for music.
Well, I mean, I grew up, I was born in South Arkansas in a pretty kind of small town called El Dorado, which, it's so small that they don't know how to pronounce El Dorado. So it's what essentially southern small town sort of spot. And eventually, when I was older, we moved to a suburb of Little Rock, and it's 20-30 minutes outside of town. There's not really a whole lot to do there, and every teenager needs some sort of outlet, and it was really hard to find that sort of stuff in town because, like I said, it's a tiny suburb with not really much going on. But I've always liked music from a really young age. I got into classical music and stuff like Vangelis, I guess, as a kid. My grandparents had a cassette tape of Floyd Kramer, who is this kind of old timey piano dude, playing Vangelis songs. So that's kind of a roundabout way that I got into synth stuff, but I didn't even know it yet.
When you say Vangelis songs, what does that mean exactly?
Vangelis is the guy that did the Blade Runner soundtrack.
Oh, I get
it.
And
Chariots of Fire and stuff like that. Kind of he's
right.
Greek, sort of
he's epic
god, basically.
That's almost like montage music.
Yeah, just like soundtrack type stuff. I mean, some
Yeah.
of his stuff's pretty experimental as well. Some, he has a pretty wide variety of music, but obviously, like the Blade Runner soundtrack had a pretty big impact on music in general, kind of.
Right.
Apparently on me as a kid, but I did, but as played by somebody else. Uh, Weird, yeah.
Right. And go ahead. Sorry.
But anyway, like, yeah, I was like in the school band and stuff, but I never really felt like that kind of environment was. I always had too many ideas, and I hated like playing in a large ensemble like that, and so I'd end up like writing my own parts for like the band, which the teachers really didn't like.
Right, you were going off script a little
I was
bit.
going off script a little bit, but eventually I picked up guitar, and it was a great way for me to express my ideas that I had, which were like flowing pretty hard from an early age. And eventually, I guess right at the tail end of high school, I kind of discovered that there was like a metal scene in Little Rock, which is near enough to go to once I got a driver's license and stuff, and started exploring that. And I realized that it's like, well, seemingly there's nothing going on here in town, but actually under the surface there's this like incredibly like vibrant and like interesting like metal scene happening. And it wasn't just metal, just like sort of just like outsider weird like punk sort of like the metal, especially at the time, but even still, but the sort of like metal and hardcore and like punk and noise and just weirdo shit was all kind of intermingled because there's not that many people, so
Right.
there isn't really like delineated scenes like you'd get maybe in other places. It's just everybody is together, and if somebody has like a rock band or a folk band or whatever, or metal band, everybody just kind of goes to each other's shows, so everything ends up being kind of like incestual because everybody likes different shit and everybody just ends up playing in each other's bands, and so there's like a lot of like cross-pollination,
Yeah, and
which was
that's
good.
how you develop a
It exposed
community
me to new stuff. Yeah, totally.
and a scene. I feel like that's how a lot of stuff in the, I'm just talking about the underground because that's what what I know, I guess. But like, certainly here in New York, all the scenes that inspired me were like guys and other people's bands. Especially with, over here it was hardcore. And it's like everyone in Youth of Today was in Judge, and everyone in Youth of Today was in Gorilla Biscuits and all that stuff. How old were you when you were in band and like sort of like realizing that you naturally wanted to kind of come up with your own stuff? Because I find that fascinating, like that at a young age you just were like, you know what, this is just what I want to do, and you obviously it came natural because you weren't doing what they told you to do.
Yeah, I remember hearing melodies in my head, like they would just be like these fully fleshed out like songs, but they didn't really exist, And I remember before even I think before I even started playing instruments, I would hear stuff in my head, but I didn't really know how to express it, and it took me a while to realize what was happening, I think. But I started playing in the school band in like 6th grade, and
Okay.
I started playing guitar when I was like 16, so several years later. But that I never really understood. I played saxophone in the band, but I never really understood the value of the instrument very well, because in the environment of like a marching band type stuff, it's just, that's not music that I really connect to at all.
Sure.
And
Yeah.
I didn't really have a lot of exposure to like jazz yet, so I didn't explore that instrument as fully, and it just didn't feel like I was able to compose on the same level or at all, really. I felt limited, but some of my like classmates, like maybe 2 or 3 times a year, they would let people bring in like guitars and stuff and just kind of like jam in the band room. And once I saw my classmates and stuff playing guitar, I was like, shit, this is fucking awesome. This is loud as hell.
Right. It's way cooler than math or science class.
Yeah, for real.
And you got some formal training there, I guess.
Yeah, but not for guitar. I never really I took one guitar lesson and they taught me the major scale, and I was like, I can do this on my own. So I never took
Right, it came natural to you.
Mm.
Well,
It's all just a matter of
instrument,
like it's just when you hear melodies, you just try to put them. I eventually figured out how to make the notes, where my fingers go, and then it just kind of comes from there.
Yeah. Let me take a couple. I like to read the comments sometimes before we move on to our next question. Outer Heaven Death, shout out to Sorrow and Extinction, Untouchable album. What's up, Super Touch? I see you out there. And then I saw another great one here from shout out from Montreal at Toke Boyle. I think I'm saying your name right. Saw you all at Bar Le Ritz 3 years ago. Small venue, great crowd. Take care and keep up with the good metal.
Thanks a lot. Thanks.
Yeah. And he says bonjour. I can't say that. I said it like such a New Yorker.
Bonjour. You sure you're not from the South?
If you're just tuning in with us now, guys, we're here with Brett from Pallbearer, and this is the Age of Quarantine. And I see a couple people have already started putting questions in the question box, which I'll check out in about 15 minutes. But yeah, anybody got questions? Throw them in there. We're just kind of going through Brett's early stages of life here. So, the last time I saw you, I actually learned everything. Well, not everything, but I learned more about the scene that you guys grew up in because that venue that we played at. What was that venue? Because I'm sure that was very instrumental.
Vinos?
Was it called?
Vinos?
Vinos, yes.
Yeah, Vinos was around from like the early 90s. It used to be called something else. But it was like originally just kind of like a punk venue, and there was a pretty like vibrant like early 90s like punk scene here. Apparently that was a little before my time.
Right. Yeah, I mean, he mentioned the sound guy had mentioned that he had worked there for a long time and had some real funny stories about the Misfits rolling up and walking up to the club and freaking out all the neighbors. And I think he said even I could be mistaken, but I think he mentioned like even Nirvana had played there at some point.
Probably. There was a ton of bands played there, and it's like in its heyday, I guess, when it was really, really popping off.
Well, so when at what point in your life, did you discover metal, doom, or just underground music in general? And what was around you that was inspiring? Maybe you could discuss some of the notable groups in the area that had some kind of impact on your life.
Well, I mean, I'm a product of the Napster era, because like I said, I didn't really know anybody that was into, like, I got into in like maybe like 7th, 8th grade. I kind of got into like your typical kid of that time, like Linkin Park and stuff like that.
Okay.
But I was like, this isn't really, I mean, I was all about it for like 6 months, and then I really started to like, well, there's got to be other stuff out there. And I was like, I like the heaviness, but I've always been that way. I always like look for like more music, I always want to hear new things. And so I just started like going there. We used to have a music CDs, CD store called Hastings in the next town over. And they had some like metal stuff. So I ended up getting in kind of, I mean, it was like the early 2000s. So I found some like, melodic death metal type stuff. And,
were you buying it just based on artwork, or did you have some reference?
Well, I would get like Metal Maniacs and stuff like that. So I was like reading magazines, reading like forums and like message board stuff, and then I just get on like Napster and just like download random stuff at like 56K and hope to have it in a couple of days.
Interesting. So you're just like, I like this band, this guy's got this here, let me check that out, and then you see so you're going to the store.
Yeah, like download like an Anathema song, and it's like I hear one song and it's like cool, so I like end up with like 4 of these songs over the course of like lengths of time. It's because it's so slow to find anything.
Right.
And then I'd try to like, sometimes I'd go order the CDs at the at the store. So it was really slow to get some of this stuff, but I was like trying to find all kinds of different music. I got into like prog and stuff, and downloaded like random like Tangerine Dream and stuff, which I was not really like completely ready for at the time. But like I was exposed to all this different music just because I was trying to listen to as much as I can, like listen to you know, not just metal and stuff too, but like, you know, post punk and anything I could
Right.
find, because I didn't have any like biases. I was just trying to find any kind of music that I could.
That's awesome. I mean, obviously, I mean, we're going to get into Pallbearer in a few, because I want to, you know, that's the whole point here. I just want to kind of get your backstory. But the music of Pallbearer is, you know, you mentioned the diversity of music in your town, and now you're talking about the music that you were getting into, from prog to post punk. And, you know, I don't necessarily hear the post punk, but I obviously hear the prog.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure you've gotten some, you know, I hope this is not annoying, but I'm sure you've gotten some Geddy Lee
Oh,
references.
sure.
And then like the music can be progressive, and you know, all the stuff that and there's, you know, the beginning of Sorrow, the album, you know, it's got that like kind of folkish guitar. You know, I love that there's like no rules when it comes to Pallbearer. What was well, before we get into that, who were your inspirations as a guitar player? And who were your inspirations as a singer?
I always feel like it's kind of I mean, there are certainly inspirations, but I feel in a lot of ways this is kind of a cop out, or it seems like it is. But genuinely, whenever I'm writing, I'm just trying to like convey melodies that I hear. So it's not like I'm trying to channel another. I mean, I've listened to a lot of stuff, so of course there's like influences that like seep in there, but I'm typically just trying to do my own thing based on the limitations of my skill, you know.
I mean, your voice is fucking pretty wild, man. Like, did you get any formal training, or is that just coming out of you?
just just playing lots of shows.
Yeah, it's something else, man.
I mean, like, obviously, like David Gilmour from Pink Floyd, that's a, you know, kind of was a big guitar influence early on, and still, because it's just, you know, he's one of the pinnacles of doing a lot with a little, you know. Andrew Latimer from Camel is a huge one, because not necessarily because of the technical skill, but just the incredible tone and melodic sense. It's, you know, same sort of stuff as David Gilmour.
For sure.
And you know, I'm inspired by anybody who kind of has a good sense of melody, but it's also, you know, sometimes you need to have noise and stuff too. So like, to me, like, guitar is I'm not like a super guitar guy where I like eat, you know, eat, sleep, and breathe, that sort of stuff. It's just, to me, it's a means to an end to make sounds and make melodies, you know. So I'm more interested in the like textural aspects of the instrument than I am like the sort of the technical
Yeah.
side.
That doesn't sound like a cop out at all. I think that explains why what you do has gotten noticed, because I feel like a lot of musicians who do get noticed, like if you talk, you know, I've watched interviews with the Melvins, as well as I've watched interviews with someone like Josh from Queens of Stone Age, or any of these guys that I find to be really exciting musicians. And I think they have similar answers where it's like, this is just coming out of me, man. Like you know, certainly there are bands that try to be something. Some of them are good at it and they end up being successful at it. But some of the best bands, you know, again, like talk about David Gilmour, and I could be wrong. I'm not a Pink Floyd expert, but I don't think he sounds like anybody before him. I think he just sounds that way. You know, I think Geddy Lee has been very vocal about their love for Yes, and bands like that. So you can see that, but that's pretty cool. And I see a lot of like no rules even before talking to you tonight. Like, I feel like there's kind of almost no rules with Pallbearer. I mean, there is a overarching, you know, there's a doom aspect. Let's
no, a general like there's an aesthetic. There's like a feeling. For me, it's like we have pretty wide boundaries, but as long as it feels like Pallbearer, I feel like the way that the music expresses itself, there's like very few limitations. As long as it just doesn't feel like something totally different. And generally it will just end up sounding like us, because it's this, you know, it's the same people writing the music, so it just kind of, there's this innate like expression that sounds like us, you know.
Yeah, it's the sum of all parts. That, you know, I've mentioned this on a couple interviews too. Like, some of the best bands or I think the best bands, are the ones where the guys or girls in the band are irreplaceable. And I couldn't imagine, on that note, like when you talk about how the band sounds the way it does because of the sum of all parts, like Devin, with a guitar player like that, it's just, that's what you get. You know what I'm saying? That's the great chemistry that you guys have. And there's other bands that play the same genre, so to speak, but what you guys have is very special. Now let's talk about how the band started, because how did Pallbearer come to be exactly?
Well, Joe and I were in a band with our friend Paul, and it was like this band called Sports, which was this kind of like ungoogleable for sure. But it was just kind of like, wall of sound, like improv, like noise, drone sort of band, like very physical and like it's just sort of just like assault on the senses. We'd play with tons of strobe lights going on and like at different rates, just no variation, just they would go the entire time and you'd just get louder and louder and louder. It was a very like bad trip sort of experience, very, very intense.
I'd love to hear that.
we've got some recordings. You should ask Joe, or should I can send them to you?
Sure.
Unfortunately, the recordings don't quite capture the physicality of the whole thing. And some of it was all improvised. So we would just like discuss before we go on stage, like what we wanted to do in terms of like dynamics, like start here and go here and whatever. We just sort of like map it out in the 15 seconds before we go on stage. But it was a lot of fun, and it taught us like how to listen. And so like learning how to play off of each other, and over time, like what our roles were as like in the sonic spectrum, like where to sit and what to do.
Sure.
And like if somebody had a drastic change in what they were playing, like you kind of mold to that and try to make the music turn. Like the idea was to be like Sun, but like not as like static,
I understand.
Like,
yeah.
We wanted to have a constant movement. So it's like if Sun was a grindcore band, like just constantly moving. But eventually, needless to say, that didn't like amass a huge number of like audience members per show usually.
I mean, you have a fan of Sports commenting, shout out to Sports and Monsters of Pot at the old
what's up? Yeah.
Ultimate Dragon.
I think that's Drew. Yeah.
Okay.
I know that guy. But yeah, that was a fun show. Yeah, we did a collaboration with a band called Monsters of Pot, and there was just like 25 amps on stage, and probably like 10 people in the audience. It's like way more work than it was worth. But yeah, we eventually just kind of got burned out on it. Like it was fun, but we felt like there was a need to kind of explore some different stuff, and so Joe and I just kind of started Pallbearer as a result. It was kind of a natural. Sports had started getting a little more structured over time, and it just kind of felt like the sort of natural next thing to do. And we were both going through like really shitty times in our life, and our lives for different reasons, but we were both going through some shitty times. And
yeah. I mean, I won't get into that, because I like that the night that we actually hung out, the last time we all saw each other, Joe, actually we spent a long time hanging out that night, and he kind of gave me the whole story, but that's a private conversation that I'll never share with anybody. We got I'm going to read a couple of comments and get to some questions, and then we'll start getting more into Pallbearer stuff, since we kind of started the whole saga that is now your life. Shout out from V Silver 121. Saw you guys in Philadelphia. Tired Hands show was great. Ad nauseum, saw you all in Albany with St. Vitus, the band, fucking tight as fuck. And
it was a fun tour.
I cannot read this person's. Roger Oint says, hello guys, You make a great sound. Congrats and greetings from Brazil. I love that when there are people from Brazil.
Yeah.
We're worldwide here.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And we're going to talk about St. Vitus, the bar, and your relationship with the bar, because it's a deep one in a few. And in that note, Dave Castillo at Confines World says, come get your asses back to Brooklyn.
As soon as we can, bud.
All right. So, and people are loving Watcher in the Dark. That's a great song. I had that playing before. Okay, let me get to some questions. Looks like I got a few here in the question mark box. Okay. At John Maskiak, what was there a cohesive thought to underproduce this record, not in a negative way? It seems lo-fi. This is, I guess, we haven't gotten into the new material, but I guess people want to know about new material. So that's a question from John Maskiak, if that's something you can answer.
Yeah. Well, there was a cohesive thought behind the general production strategy, I suppose. It was supposed to sound more like live, and it was recorded in a way that was close to live, like the bass and drums are kind of captured together, and then Devin and I did all the rhythm guitars together. I will say that if you've only listened to it on like a phone or something, like it was mixed at intense volume in the control room, so it opens up the more you turn it up. It is, thanks to Randall, of course, like it's designed to be listened to at like ear splitting volume, and it sounds that's the intent, you know. So yeah, it sounds different than Heartless, because Heartless was like, you know, very nuanced, I guess, and technical. And so if we'd used more kind of, I guess, like nasty sounding, like fuzzy tones, it would have become just kind of like a mush, I guess. But since a lot of this record is more like riff based, or, you know, chord progression based, we wanted to have more like interesting guitar tones that don't just like stick to your kind of standard sterile, you know, tight metal production. We want it to have like kind of a nasty, like fucked up sort of sound to help get the atmosphere that we were going for. You know, I like the way it sounds.
I love the way it sounds. It's great. Shout out to I see Author and Punisher saying hello. Hey man,
what's up?
We got to get you on the show if you're still watching. So hit me up if you want to send us a DM after the show's over. I definitely want to get you on the show. Okay, and then there's a couple other questions. This Way Out, how did you choose the Sabbath cover over and over?
We used to play that live pretty frequently in the early days before we had a whole lot of songs. And I always, it's one of my favorite Sabbath songs. I think it's like one of their like most, you know, beautiful and sad sounding songs. And it's like, it always felt like a perfect candidate for a Pallbearer, you know, rendition. And so, yeah, when we were doing the Fear and Fury EP, we were just like, shit, we haven't played over and over in a couple of years, but let's go ahead and make a version of it, because, you know, we hadn't played it in a while, but it would be cool to have it somewhere out there in the world for posterity.
Fuck yeah, man. I feel you. It's like, sometimes it's fun to just like I think you could learn a lot from doing cover songs. And if you do a good job of it, it's like sometimes, especially if you're just trying to, like, you just put out an album or whatever, it's kind of cool to just be like, fuck it, we'll do some covers.
Yeah.
You know, we got a shout out from Aldo Maidana from Argentina. We got Argentina in the house. I love it. Hell yeah. Capillarian says, oh gosh, the Typo cover. That was one of my questions to talk about that. The Typo Negative cover is your most streamed song. And that's, I mean, that's
There's
a lot of
something
people's
to be
favorite.
said about that. I'm not sure why.
I mean, it's a lot of people's favorite Typo song. It's my favorite Typo song.
I'm
not going to lie to you. I wanted to cover that, and then I was like, fuck, they did it. Damn it.
Well, they got a lot of other good songs to cover, luckily.
Yeah. Greetings from Ireland, from Adlec. Super excited about this record. Well done to all involved.
Thanks.
Very cool shit. Everybody watching, since I'm, you know, kind of turning it over to the audience right now, if you are just tuning in, if you missed the first half an hour of this entire episode, will be available on the St. Vitus IGTV within minutes after this is over. So you can watch it later on after dinner, whatever time it is in your fucking world, country, or whatever part of the universe that you're in. And it'll be on YouTube. So, you can search Age of Quarantine, Pallbearer, and it'll pull up. Okay, what else do we got here? We got one from Mike, at Mike Farrell Dude. How would you say the new album differs from your previous work?
I'd say it's the most like diverse record that we have. But it's also like in a way the most like cohesive, which sounds like bullshit, but it sounds like some shit people say for like for press. It's actually like our craziest and weirdest album, but it's like also the most like traditional. But
they always try to change their answer to make it kind of fresh. Yeah,
it's got like elements of all of our albums, I think, which wasn't necessarily something we were trying to do. It just kind of emerged. But we were, we always want to try new things, and so there's obviously our last single is a pretty short song. There's another song on there that's like 4 minutes. We were kind of experimenting, trying to write like shorter songs just for the hell of it, because we've never done it, and it seemed like an interesting challenge to see if we could do like a Pallbearer song in like a short period of time.
You mean the length of the songs?
Yeah, the length of the song.
That was one of my questions. So yeah, that's interesting because I noticed that.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, I mean, I think everyone did.
Yeah,
they're noticeably shorter. Yeah.
Yeah, the average song length is not like 9 minutes on the album, unlike everything else. But I mean, we pushed kind of like the like technical and sort of symphonic aspect of the band, pretty far on Heartless. And so, I mean, we did that and focused on that for years. Playing like those songs for 2 years, like nonstop on the road. And so we felt like trying some different stuff. We found that like actually live, the stuff we enjoy playing the most is like some of the big, like expansive, songs, like in terms of like the sonic heft of everything. So
Sure.
We wanted to write something that was a little more direct, and less like noodly. I still really, Heartless was something we needed to make at the time, and this just felt like what we felt like making. Like all of our records are just kind of what we feel like making at the time.
Right.
And so inevitably, some of the aspects of our previous material will come through as time goes on, but we're also looking to like, explore and expand our musical palette. So this one ends up with some different textures and, songwriting.
Your exposure now with Nuclear Blast, which we'll elaborate on, is also not saying like, oh, they're trying to cash in. That's not where I'm going with this, but like certainly like on a larger scale, like probably a little more digestible for folks who might pick up on the band because you're on a bigger label that didn't know who you were before, and then go back and be like, oh shit, like their earlier stuff, they have like 12-minute songs.
Yeah.
Wild,
Yeah, that is, I guess, potentially a side effect of that, which hopefully will be good. I mean, there's still some weirder songs on the album. Have you heard the whole album?
I actually have it, and I've only heard the singles. I haven't sat down with the whole thing yet, but obviously through work I got a promo, so
right.
One of the perks of having the same publicist.
Yeah. There's definitely some weirder stuff. What we released as singles are sort of more of the like straightforward songs on the album. So there's still plenty exploratory stuff for people that are into that side of the band.
I thought this was kind of adorable. At Trent, I don't know how to say this. At Trent Stark, my 8-year-old daughter wants to know, how long have y'all been a band and friends?
Well,
it might be our youngest member of the
audience. Joe and I met in 2005, so we've been friends for 15 years, and we started Pallbearer in 2008. So
there you go.
That's a little math problem for the 8-year-old. I think that's probably. I think she's, or he is, at that point in school now. But yeah, and then Devin, I met Devin probably around like '07 or something, and then I met Mark whenever he joined the band like 9 years ago.
Okay, yeah, because you had some different drummers,
Mm-hmm.
and I love Mark, dude. He's such an interesting drummer, and he knows how to kind of like pull back. He's got great natural tempo,
Mm-hmm.
and I had the pleasure of playing his drums on a few shows, and his drum sounds great, man. Love that dude. Okay, so we took some questions from the audience. Maybe I'll get to a few more later. I'm going to get back to mine. Okay, this is an interesting topic, being that we're on the St. Vitus Bar channel. You had a 3-song demo, obviously when this all started. Do you remember the connection? I mean, if Dave Castillo was doing the interview, he could answer this himself. I was a little more on the outside, but do you remember the connection between that 3-song demo being circulated and how it, it got into the hands of the people at St. Vitus. They fell in love with it, and there was a relationship that started, and you have a very strong following here in Brooklyn.
Yeah.
Talk about your relationship with St. Vitus and Brooklyn in general, because when you come here, people fucking come out. You know that.
For sure.
Yeah.
We've always felt very loved in Brooklyn from the very beginning. I don't know how they got a hold of the demo to begin with. I really don't know. Maybe it was through the Hull guys or something, because we've been friends with those dudes.
Oh, you talking about Hull?
Hull, yeah.
Yeah, those are good friends of mine. All those guys. I grew up with some of those guys. Yeah.
I don't know if it's through them or what. I've never asked any of those guys, Dave or Artie or anybody. But we've been friends with Hull. Sports played shows with them back in the day.
Yeah.
But anyway, like our first NYC show, we played at Vitus, and I think we were the first band to like sell out in pre-sales, I think, there.
And they flew. Did they fly you out? Is that how it worked too?
Yeah, I can't remember. As will be explained as the story goes on, I definitely drank too much in those days. But I think we did fly out.
That's what I remember.
Yeah, because we played Vitus, and then immediately played another show afterwards at Acheron when that was still around.
R.I.P.
Yeah, at like 1:30 in the morning or something. I vomited in a trash can and then got on stage.
Oh, jeez.
It was not a good situation. But yeah, we felt very, very, those were the days where we had, we were very green as a band, as evidenced by, getting so drunk that you could throw up. But I would never do that now. But, we didn't know what the hell we were doing. And
no, of course not. And you're in a big city coming from Arkansas.
Yeah.
And like fucking, you're like, holy shit, we're kind of like, I'm saying big deal in the sense of like coming down and fucking playing 250 people when you're flying from Arkansas to from New York. That's a big deal.
It was surreal because like we didn't get an audience at home until years later. So
Brooklyn was the first one, huh?
I mean, yeah, it was an insane crowd. There was people literally out the door, like all the way back.
Yeah.
But at home in Little Rock, we'd be playing to like 15 people. So it was pretty surreal. I mean, I felt, for the first time, it's like, this could, we can do this. We can really do this.
I was going to ask about that when you first noticed. I mean, you just answered the question, like when you first noticed that the band was getting a taste of like some popularity, which obviously escalated because, we're talking about your demo. The band eventually got picked up by Profound Lore. I'm going to have to skip through a bit because we have 15 minutes left, so I don't want to run out of time to get to like talk about the new album. But Sorrow and Extinction made a big splash in the underground music scene. What's your take, when you kind of like sit back and go, oh shit, like I think, like you said, I think we can do this. Like there's something happening and we need to fucking make this worthwhile our time,
I mean, at that point, like I say, I was just kind of a wreck of a human being. And
I'm with you, man. I'm sober now, so I get it.
oh, the sobriety or just the drunkenness was kind of a big part of it too. I was definitely drinking way more than anybody should, but that was kind of an expression of my just how I felt. I was just very deeply depressed, and there was no such thing as a long-term goal for me. I assumed I would be dead by 30 if I made it that long. It was bad, and but one of the only things that kept me going at that point was I really loved to make music, and I was like, well, I can't do that if I'm dead. So
sure, yeah.
but I put everything into it, and so when we made Sorrow and Extinction, it was a very pure expression of what we needed to do, and we were trying to make Dark Side of the Moon. Every time we've gone to the studio, we're like, we need to make. I mean, not that we felt like it would actually be on that level, but we always set the bar for ourselves as high as the bar can go. Because if you don't shoot for that, then why do anything at all? In my opinion, not saying that.
I agree with
that's
you.
Just how we feel about it.
No, we gotta I get what you're saying, because it's also like some people are just like, fuck it, I'm gonna start a band that sounds like the Ramones. I want to party.
And that's fine too. That's great.
Yeah. But the challenge is a great thing, and it creates something much larger than just music. At that point, it's an experience for you and for the listener and the audience.
I think being real and like having a direct viewpoint into an artist's like heart or whatever, how they feel, it's important for me. I'd like to do that, and that's why I say our music changes, but it's because it's what we feel like we need to make at the time. We're not gonna be artificial about it.
For sure, and I love that. I mean, the popularity, I guess started pretty early on, at least here in Brooklyn, and then sort of turned into a thing where then suddenly, you guys are nominated for an award overseas at the Golden Gods, Metal Hammer Golden Gods, and your, Decibels got you we were on the front cover at some point, right?
Yeah.
That kind of shit. When this starts happening, when Sorrow, I'm jumping around a little bit, I know, but Sorrow and Extinction makes this big splash in the underground. You realize that you're pretty big in Brooklyn, which is a big deal because it's a big city. When you're writing Worlds Apart, when you're writing your follow-up to that, with Foundations of Burden, which is a strong follow-up, is it going through your mind at all? How do I top the last thing that I did because I want to keep this thing going? Or is it still a reflection of just like, I'm just going to do what I feel to me, and I hope it catches on? Like, is it intimidating to kind of walk into? No?
We've never been intimidated at all. None of that stuff is really, I mean, I appreciate it, and I recognize how lucky and blessed, I guess, #blessed that I am to be where I'm at. But in terms of audience perception or critical type stuff, that really doesn't make any difference. I mean, obviously I prefer a good review to a bad one, or a good response to a bad one. But when it comes to writing music, it's just, there's so many things that I want to try, and it's always felt like whatever the next step is it's the natural next step. And in terms of the external factors are not really, they don't matter.
Yeah. I mean, I kind of figured you would say that. It was kind of an obvious one to me, but it's an interesting thing to, I think, talk about, just because when you make music that's niche, I think is the best word to use. That's not, I mean, look, you and I are not, 18-year-old guys playing in a boy band. You know what I mean? That's not the world that we live in. Maybe I should have done that. I don't know.
Yeah, I know, for real. I was never good enough of a dancer for that.
Right. No, but my point is, you kind of are like, oh shit, like people fucking like this and it means something to them. And I would imagine as a songwriter, I'm a drummer, so I rely on the songwriters in my band to come up with music. I just feel like me personally, I'd probably be like, fuck, like that's just my personality. Probably why I'm not a primary songwriter in a cool band, but like I'm just like, I'd be like, fuck, well, like how do I even fucking top that? You know what I mean? So I'm gonna jump ahead because I hate whenever I'm doing a good interview, it just fucking flies by.
Yeah.
10 minutes left.
I'm in no. I mean, I don't care if it runs over a little.
Oh no, I wish too. The Instagram kicks you off automatically.
Oh right.
One of those fucking things, and then it's just annoying. But let's talk about some holy shit moments because Nuclear Blast is a really big deal. It was made public that you had signed. I knew what was happening for a while, and even you guys told me. I was like, I think I know about something that's happening, and you wouldn't tell me last time I saw you guys.
Yeah.
Like, maybe. Let's talk about how Nuclear Blast came about, but also in the same sort of topic, I mentioned that you won at the Metal Hammer 2017 Golden Gods Best Underground Artist. You were on the cover of Decibel. Talk about just like that point where it's like the holy shit moments. Like, I can't believe I'm here. I can't believe this is happening. And then it leads you to Nuclear Blast,
In all honesty, I kind of just accept everything as it comes. I try to like approach life that way. Like I said, because for me, it's always just been about being able to create and do it as well as possible. And of course, the greater resources and like obviously Nuclear Blast comes with a large amount of resources that more than we'd had before, which is great and just good for us. But for me, the whole love just comes from my love of like creating things, making music, and getting to do something positive with my good friends. We really love doing it. We love each other. We get along really well, and like to do this together. And I think like the most gratifying thing to me, more than being on like a magazine cover or winning an award or something, as cool as that is, it's when people come up to me after shows and say like, this helped me get through X, that to me, that means that something that I'm put so much of myself into is actually doing something positive for other people that I don't even know, and that's what really,
that's huge.
Yeah.
Especially like imagine like somebody going through what you were going through that you were just talking about, and that you connected with that person through your own personal matters that you're going through.
And there's music that's done that for me, so if I can help be a part of making something that fills that role for people who are going through tough times in their life or good times, then that's what really means something to me,
That's an interesting point too, because I mean, like, while some of a decent amount of Pallbearer music could be seen as like kind of like somber or dark, I mean, I definitely seen people. I've seen you guys so many times at this point. You always have the collection of like the beer guys that are just fucking like ready to rip. Like,
oh yeah,
they fucking had like I feel like Pallbearer has like craft beer bro fans. Yeah. I mean that in all due respect, by the way, but like you see the dudes with their arms around each other with the beards, and they're on their fucking like 12th craft beer.
Yeah.
I don't know how they fucking did it, but they got there. And they're just having a good time.
For sure.
And that's metal for you.
Yeah.
While we're kind of just going off here, Joe has a side project that's like not exactly metal. It's like more in the Italo disco tip. That's actually oddly enough how him and I became a little closer was because I was dating a DJ and him and his wife showed up, and I was like, what are you doing here?
Yeah.
And he was like, I really like this stuff. Like, I'm not trying to be funny. Like, that's why I'm here.
Right.
And we went to a couple parties, but do you have any sort of like music projects or interest in stuff outside of Pallbearer that's that might be surprising that
Oh
people?
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I'm really into synth stuff too. My stuff's kind of more on the like abstract end of things. I've been kind of working on like a sort of minimalistic kind of Stars of Ballet-esque thing for a while, on and off, and I do like, sort of Berlin school sort of, exploratory long form like modular synth pieces and stuff.
Wow. Okay.
I have tons of that stuff, but I never like, I don't know, I've just never released any of it. I'd like to eventually, and I really should. I have tons of recordings. And early in the pandemic, I was planning on doing like an Alan Parsons project style thing. So I wrote a couple of songs in that vein, but now I don't even know how I'd release them because I never followed up on that. So there's no way to really like put it out. But yeah, I mean, I write all kinds of different stuff. Pallbearer is easy for me to do because it's such a, it's an established language. And so, yeah, I'm always working on music. Like the modular stuff I'd like to put out, but so much of it is like, something that evolves over like 6 hours. And so how do you put that out? I don't know.
Oh, I want to get that. Somebody just said put your synth jams on Bandcamp, Brett. That would be awesome. That's at Kirkpatrick Sean. I agree with him. It's a great medium for that stuff to get circulated around a bit. I'm just gonna mention a couple comments here. Again from at Capillare. Yes, dude. Foundations of Burden hit me at the perfect time in my life. It was therapy for me. Thank you so much. At John Gauthier, this is true. Your music is amazing. Saw you guys in Miami not too long ago. Great show. And Conjure Har at, I think each album is a step up from the last. I rank the albums from least favorite to favorite in order that they were released.
Thanks, man.
So there you go, man. Really good feedback. You got some great fans out there. Looks like we had a lot of people putting in questions. Let's see. I'll take this one last one, and then we're gonna put you on the top 10 list seat here with the limited amount of time we have. What's the idea behind the artwork? Seems a little similar to the Atlanta single.
It's kind of complicated, but it's the same artist. It's Mark's brother, Michael. It's kind of just tied into the lyrical themes of some of the major lyrical themes of the album. It's tied into kind of like family and passage of time and uncertainty and kind of like perspective and entropy. I don't know. It's a lot. It's a lot to explain in the limited time that we have. But yeah, it's kind of tied into the lyrics of the album.
Well, let's do this, and then I'll do what my final question usually is if we don't get kicked off. But when is the new album Forgotten Days going to be coming out?
October 23rd.
All right. Well, then everyone set your calendars. Y'all probably know that already. And we got 2 minutes left. If you don't want to answer this question, it's fine. I enjoy this kind of stuff, so I always ask people. But you're stuck on a desert island. You have 10 albums you can keep with you, and that's it. What are they and why?
Oh man.
And we got a minute and a half left.
That's impossible. I'll just say like 10 Camel albums, honestly. Yeah, I'm just gonna say that 10 Camel albums. They only have like 15, so the best like 10 Camel albums. I don't know, dude. If I'm on a desert island, y'all should check out. Just speaking of desert island, check out Stalker by Robert Rich and Lustmord. It's like, it feels like being stranded on like an island with some sort of like beast or something stalking you. It's genuinely terrifying. It's like sort of weird, like dark ambient music, but
I've heard it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's super vibey.
All right, so we got enough from you in this interview to know what you grew up on, what you're into. And I always hate when we get kicked off before we can formally say goodbye. So I want to say thank you for making time, and I'm glad to see that you're doing well and that you have things happening in despite of all this insanity. And just one last time, I want to mention to everybody, if you just tuned in too late, you can watch this whole thing in its entirety in about 5 minutes on the St. Vitus IGTV, and it'll be on YouTube within a week or two. So, and thanks to everyone from all over the world who have been watching. And Brett, any final comments or shout outs before we say goodbye?
I just want to thank everybody for tuning in, and it's good to see you, man.
You too, brother. And good luck with everything. And, maybe we'll see some sports jams
Yeah.
and some jams end up on Bandcamp or SoundCloud.
Yeah, we need to remix those and put them out there. Joe found a bunch of them in we thought that we only had low quality MP3s, but he found some waves the other day, so we could actually put that stuff out finally.
Oh, that's great, man. Do me a favor, man. Please send my best to Devin and Mark. I'll probably see Joe at some point here in Brooklyn, but I'd love to see all you guys at some point soon, and hopefully we can all see you play. And we want you to come back to St. Vitus and all that. So let's hope that there'll be a Pallbearer tour sooner than later.
Me too, man.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, brother.
All right, good to see you, brother.
You too. Stay safe. Take care.
All right, you too. Bye.
Bye. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. That was a treat. Getting to talk to my friend Brett Campbell from Pallbearer. Glad you all joined us. And tomorrow we have Tyler King, prominent booking person in New York that worked at CBGB's. And then on Thursday, I got fucking Brian Baker from fucking Bad Religion and Minor Threat and Dag Nasty. Yeah, I'm freaking out. I can't even deal with that. But Friday we have New York hardcore legend Carl Picaro from Killing Time, Raw Deal, and Breakdown. It's gonna be a great week. If you like what you saw and you want to watch past episodes, go on YouTube, look me up, Christopher Enriquez. There's a bunch of episodes on there, and on the Revolver Magazine channel, and also on the IGTV here at St. Vitus Bar. Vote in November. Don't be a dick. Let's fucking make a change. Black Lives Matter, and wear a mask and stay safe and be nice to each other, and let's hope for a better future. Peace out.